want to thank you for joining me for part 3 of Messianic Prophecies titled The Promise. The foundational scriptures for this video are Genesis chapter 12 verses 2, 3, and 7, chapter 13, 3, 4, and 14 to 18, chapter 15 verse 18, chapter 16, chapter 21, and chapter 25. Again, I'm encouraging you to read these for yourself. My purpose here is just to summarize. I don't have a lot of time. In Genesis 12 verses 1 through 3, God called Abraham out of Haran in the territory of the Chaldees to the land of Canaan. He proclaimed a blessing on Abraham. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, and unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Abram had a following in Haran, and took with him his wife, his nephew, Lot, and all those people to the city of Shechem, which is in Canaan. And there God met him and proclaimed the same blessing in verse 7. And the Lord appeared unto Abraham and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him. From the altar in Shechem, Abraham continued to survey the land of Canaan to a mountain between Bethel and Hai. Abraham built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord. He continued from there southward when the land was struck with a famine. During the famine, he traveled to Egypt to live a while. And when the Pharaoh attempted to take Sarah as his wife, because Abraham said she was his sister, the Lord plagued the Pharaoh's house. After that, Abraham and his crew were sent out of Egypt with all of his possessions, Sarah, Lot, and the people with him. He returned to the altar between Bethel and Hai, Genesis 13, 1 through 4. While living there, the company of Lot and the company of Abraham fought over land and cattle. Abraham and Lot met together, and Lot was given an option to choose which direction he would go to live, because both were becoming too large to dwell together, and there was too much strife. Lot chose the land of Sodom, Genesis 13, 8 through 12. When Lot left, God met with Abraham again and said in verses 14 to 18, And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, Lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art, northward and southward, and eastward and westward. For all the land that thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Rise, walk through the land in the length of it and the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. Then Abraham removed his tent, and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. Abraham continued to make friends and influence people when 4 kings conquered and ruled Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela, also named Zoar. After 12 years of reign, the people rebelled. When the rebellion failed, Lot, his family, and all the goods and women of Sodom and Gomorrah were taken to the city of Chedorlaomer. Someone who had escaped told Abraham what had taken place and that Lot was captured. Abraham built a small army of 318 from the servants of his household. By night, they surrounded the city and killed everyone sleeping and pursued the survivors all the way to Damascus. All the women and spoils were returned to the king of Sodom, and the lives of Lot's family were saved. He divided the spoils with the alliances that helped him. The cities east of the Dead Sea and the Jordan River to the King's Highway and north to Damascus that were saved by Abraham and his army had become a part of the inheritance of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Genesis 14. See the map. Abraham still had a dilemma. His family was made up of his employees, all of whom were born to other employees that he hired to help him in his merchant trade business. Since Abraham was a going concern in the area, these families had nowhere to go where they would be treated with kindness and respect. They preferred to remain with Abraham and Sarah. Sarah was still barren, and Abraham had no heir. He had no son. Abraham brought this up to the Lord, and the covenant was forged. In chapter 15, 2 through 6, we read that God promised an heir of his own seed. Abraham believed him in verse 6. After the covenant was made, Abraham was told that the future posterity would be subject to 400 years of affliction to a strange nation, which we now know as Egypt. But after that, they would leave it with great wealth to inherit the land from the Nile River along the banks of the Mediterranean to Damascus, and from Damascus along the Euphrates River south to the Persian Gulf. We will see later why Saudi Arabia and Iraq are not included in the inheritance of Israel later. In remembrance of the promise of God, Abraham and Sarah continued to try to bear children to no avail. In Genesis 16, Sarah, in frustration, allowed Hagar, her servant, to sleep with Abraham. When Hagar became pregnant, she was full of envy at Sarah. When Sarah fought with her, Hagar ran away. The angel of the Lord found her and asked what she was doing there. She explained the whole ordeal. He promised her that her son would multiply beyond number, and that his name should be called Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. The angel sent her back to Sarah. At this time, Abraham was 86 years old, according to Genesis 16:16. In chapter 17, Abraham's faith in God was beginning to falter. God came again to promise that Sarah would give birth. Abraham laughed and fell on his face in disbelief because he was 99 years old and Sarah was 90. God told Abraham that he would return the following year at the same time. It would be then that Sarah would conceive and bear Abraham a son. A year later, the Lord visited again and opened the womb of Sarah. She conceived and gave birth to Isaac, meaning laughter. Genesis 21. There was a party, and then Isaac was weaned. Sarah caught Ishmael teasing Isaac in his crib, and she told Abraham to cast out Hagar and Ishmael. Abraham asked God about it, and he said that she was right. Perhaps remembering the promise to Ishmael, Genesis 17:20, Abraham sent them away into the desert. God reconfirmed his covenant with Abraham by stating that Isaac would carry forward the inheritance of not only Isaiah, which would be given to, God reconfirmed his covenant with Abraham by stating that Isaac would carry forward the inheritance not only of Israel to his seed forever, but also of the Messiah. The Lord appeared to Hagar in the desert and promised her again that her son would become a great nation and a blessing to many nations. He showed her a well of water to save herself and her son. God remained with them. Ishmael took a wife from Egypt, and this is where Saudi Arabia came from. Genesis 25:12 through 18. See ancient map. Ishmael and his sons settled in northern Arabia and spread south to Yemen. See current map. The descendants of only 5 of 12 tribes still exist today. It provides most of the global supply of oil. After the death of Abraham, Isaac continued to grow in wealth and in numbers. During a famine, Isaac took his company to live with the Philistines. While he was there, they stopped up the wells of Abraham. As he continued to grow in wealth and in numbers, the Philistines became envious of him and sent him away. When he attempted to reclaim the wells of Abraham, the inhabitants of Gerar fought with him over these wells, and Isaac moved again until he found a well where there would be no fighting. Isaac was blessed by God and had lived in peace whenever possible and made pacts to ensure that peace would continue. Isaac and Rebekah gave birth to twins, Jacob and Esau, who will be the focus of the next video in the series. At this time, I would like to give you a short invitation to accept Jesus Christ, the Messiah, into your heart as your Lord and Savior. In John chapter 11, verses 25 and 26, Jesus was confronted by Martha at the death of Lazarus, her brother. And he said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die." And I'm asking you the same question that he asked her. Do you believe this? If so, time is getting short. Accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior and start asking the Lord for direction and guidance. Thank you very much.